Okay. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam, Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sargana Raghunatham Sajivam, Satvaitam Savadhutam Parjan Saitam Vishnu Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sargana Lita, Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha, Namo Vishnu Palaya Vishnu Preshthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti-vaibhava Swami Nityanamane, Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharya, Nirvishesha Shunyani Paschatya Deshatare. श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरव भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थी पीयूष सर्ववेदैक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलोकैक प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्याय श्रीकृष्णाय नमोस्तुते मदेक बंधो मत्संगी मद्गुरो मन्महाधन मन्निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते साधु साधुता दायिन् अतिनीचोच्चताकर पानमुंच गदाचिन् मां प्रेम्णा हृत्कंठयोस्पर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So 2.4.5 to 2.4.10 x5 राजोवाच समीचीनं वचो ब्रह्मन् सर्वज्ञस्य तवानघ तमो विशीर्यते मह्यं हरेः कथयतः कथाम्. Maharaj Parikshit said, O learned Brahmana, you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. The practical experience of Maharaj Parikshit is disclosed herein, revealing that transcendental topics of the Lord act like injections when received by the sincere devotee from a person who is perfectly uncontaminated by material. In other words, a reception of the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam from professional men heard by a Karmakandi audience never acts miraculously as stated here. See, the question of effect or result is always there. Srimad Bhagavatam should be heard in such a manner that the predicted effect or result is achieved. Same thing applies for chanting Hare Krishna. Same thing applies for serving the pure devotee. So same thing applies for engaging in deity worship and so on. It is the result that we are interested in, not just the process. We are result oriented, not just process oriented. But to attain the result, you need to follow a certain process. Devotional hearing of the messages of the Lord is not like hearing ordinary topics. Therefore, the action will be felt by the sincere hearer, by the experience of the gradual disappearance of ignorance. यस्य देवे पराभक्त यथा देवे तथा गुरौ तस्यैते कथिता हि अर्था प्रकाशन्ते महात्मनः. When a hungry man is given food to eat, he feels satiation of hunger and the pleasure of dining simultaneously. He does not have to ask whether he has actually been fed or not. The crucial test of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should get positive enlightenment by such an act. This itself is a reference to a text that will appear in the 11th canto, text 6. भूय एव वित्सामि भगवान् आत्ममायया यथेदं सृजते विश्वं दुर्विभाव्यम् अधीश्वरैः. I beg to know from you how the personality of God, by his personal energies, creates these phenomenal universes. phenomenal universe. Phenomenal means that which is uh, perceivable by the senses as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great demigods. So notice this important point that even the material universe are inconceivable even to the great demigods. One of the axioms of modern science is that the universe can be understood on principle. But from the Vedic scriptures, we understand that the universe cannot be understood uh, even on principle fully. In every inquisitive mind, the important question, oh, sorry. एतदपि ज्ञातुम् इच्छामि इत्यर्थः. I also want to know this. Bhuya eva vitsami, meaning I wish to know this also. Apatatah sakshat Shri Krishna charita shravane tad viyoga dukha buddhi syat. If if you were to directly hear the activities of Lord Shri Krishna, then uh, then he would experience separation from Lord Shri Krishna. Iti nija dhairya apadanaya tad aishwarya vishesha prashnaha ayam jeyah. So it should be understood that this question is specifically about the Lord's aishwarya in order to pacify him. This is the apparent reason for this question. Apatataha. भूय एवेति अत्र रागयोऽयम् अभिप्रायः. म्रियमाणस्य मम कृत्यानि श्रवणकीर्तन स्मरणानि एव उक्तानि. This is the opinion of the king. I am about to die, and my duties are have already been said to be Shravana Kirtana Smarana. Tesham cha Vishayaha Krishna Leela Rupa Gunadhyaha. And the subject matters for Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam are Krishna's pastimes, forms, qualities, and so on. Tatra Prathamam Maya Shakti Mataha Tasya Srishti Adilila Jigyasya. First of all, the pastime, the pastimes of the Lord, beginning with creation, as the possessor of the Maya Shakti, is meant to be inquired about. Tatasya Shaktimato Govardhanodharanadya iti. And then his pastimes beginning with his lifting Govardhana, which are performed by him as the possessor of the spiritual Shakti, Chit Shakti. Then that is meant to be inquired about. Bhuya eva punarabhi. Again, I wish to know this. Durvibhavyam, dhyatuma shakti. Durvibhavyam, inconceivable means it is not possible to meditate upon this universe fully. In every inquisitive mind, the important question of the creation of the phenomenal world arises. And therefore, for a personality like Maharaj Parikshit, who wants to know all the activities of the Lord from his spiritual master, such an inquiry is not uncommon. For every unknown thing, we have to learn and inquire from a learned personality. The question of creation is also one of such inquiries to be made to the right person. The spiritual master, therefore, must be one who is Sarvagya, as stated here and before in connection with Shukadeva Goswami. Must be Sarvagya means he should know everything that needs to be known. Thus, all inquiries on God which are unknown to the disciple may be made from the qualified spiritual master. And here the practical example is set by Maharaj Parikshit. It was, however, already known to Maharaj Parikshit that everything we see is born out of the energy of the Lord, as we have all learned in the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Janmadyasya Yataha. So Maharaj Parikshit wanted to know the process of creation. The origin of creation was known to him, otherwise, he would not have inquired how the personality of God, by its different energies, creates this phenomenal world. The common man also knows that the creation is made by some creator and it's not created automatically. We have no experience in the practical world that a thing is created automatically. Foolish people say that the creative energy is independent and acts automatically as electrical energy works. But the intelligent man knows that even the electrical energy is generated by an expert engineer in the localized powerhouse, and thus the energy is distributed everywhere under the resident engineer's supervision. The Lord's supervision in connection with creation is also mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10, and it is clearly said there that the material energy is a manifestation of one of many such energies of the Supreme. Rasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. What does 9.10 say? Mayadhyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagat Viparivartate. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate is from Shvetashvatara. An inexperienced boy may be struck with wonder by seeing the impersonal actions of electronics or many other wonderful things conducted by electrical energy. But an experienced man knows that behind the action is a living man who creates such energy. Similarly, the so-called scholars and philosophers of the world may, by mental speculation, present so many utopian theories about the impersonal creation of the universe. But an intelligent devotee of the Lord, by studying the Bhagavad Gita, can know that behind the creation is the hand of the Supreme Lord, just as in the generating electrical powerhouse, that is the resident engineer. The research scholar finds out the cause and the effect of everything. But research scholars, as great as Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and many other demigods, are sometimes bewildered by seeing the wonderful creative energy of the Lord. So, what to speak of the tiny mundane scholars dealing in petty things? As there are differences in living conditions of different planets of the universe, and as one planet is superior to others, the brains of the living entities in those respective planets are also of different categorical values. That means they are of different categories with different capacities. Just 1 minute. From the Bhagavad Gita, one can understand that the long duration of life of the inhabitants of Brahma's planet is inconceivable to the inhabitants of this planet Earth. Similarly, the categorical value of the brain of Brahmaji is also inconceivable to any great scientist of this planet. Yet, even with such high brain power, Brahmaji considers the brain of the Supreme Lord inconceivable among the powerful demigods in charge of the management of the universal affairs. Brahmaji and Shivaji are called Ishvara or Adhishvara. Still, Brahmaji has described Lord Krishna as a supreme Ishvara in his great Samhita, Brahma Samhita 5.1, as follows: Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Nadir Adir Govinda Sarvat Karana Karana. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan, but Krishna is a supreme because none can excel him. He is a supreme person, and his body is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. He is the primeval Lord Govinda, the cause of all causes. Brahmaji admits Lord Krishna to be the supreme cause of all causes. But persons with tiny brains within this petty planet Earth think of the Lord as one of them. Thus, when the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita that he, Lord Krishna, is all in all, the speculative philosophers and the mundane wranglers, argumentator, deride him. And the Lord regretfully says, Vajananti mam mudha manushim tanam ashritam param bhava vajananto mama bhutam maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as a supreme Lord of all that be. 9.11. Brahma and Shiva, and what to speak of other demigods, are bhutas. Mama bhuta maheshwaram. He is the great Lord of all those who are created, bhutas. or powerfully created demigods who manage universal affairs, much like ministers appointed by a king. The ministers may be Ishwaras or controllers, but the Supreme Lord is Maheshwara or the creator of the controllers. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge do not know this, and therefore they have the audacity to deride him, because by his causeless mercy, he occasionally comes before us in the form of a human being. But the Lord is not like a human being. He is Sachidananda Vigraha, or the absolute personality of Godhead. And there's no difference between his body and his soul. He's both the power and the powerful. Maharaj Parikshit did not ask his spiritual master Shukadeva Goswami to narrate about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. He wanted to hear first about the Lord's creation. Shukadeva Goswami did not say that the king should hear about the direct transcendental pastimes of the Lord. The time was very short, and naturally Shukadeva Goswami could have gone directly to the 10th canto to make a shortcut of the whole thing, as generally done by the professional reciters. See, when Prabhupada uses the word professional, it means that they are taking money for speaking on Bhagavatam. But neither the king nor the great speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam jumped forward like the organizers of week-long Bhagavatam readings. Both of them proceeded systematically so that future readers and hearers might take lessons from the example of the procedure of reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are under the control of the external energy of the Lord, or in other words, those who are in the material world, must first of all know how the external energy of the Lord is working under the direction of the Supreme Personality. And afterwards, when we try to enter into the activities of his internal energy, the mundaners are mostly worshippers of Durga Devi, the external energy of Krishna, but they do not know that Durga Devi is but the shadow energy of the Lord. Behind her astonishing display of material workings is the direction of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. The Brahma Samhita also confirms that the Durga Shakti is working by the direction of Govinda, and that without his sanction, the powerful Durga Shakti cannot move even a blade of grass. Therefore, the neophyte devotee, instead of jumping at once to the platform of the transcendental pastimes presented by the internal energy of the Lord, may know how great the Supreme Lord is by inquiring about the process of his creative energy. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, descriptions of the creative energy and the Lord's hand in it are explained. And the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita has warned the neophyte devotees to be seriously on guard against the pitfall of neglecting knowledge about Krishna in regard to how great he is in the early chapters of Adi Leela. There. Only when one knows Lord Krishna's greatness can one firmly put one's unflinching faith in him. Otherwise, like the common man, even the great leaders of men will mistake Lord Krishna for one of the many demigods or a historical personality or a myth only. The transcendental pastimes of the Lord in Vrindavan or even at Dwaraka are relishable for persons who have already qualified themselves in advanced spiritual techniques. And the common man may be able to attain to such a plane by the gradual process of service and inquiries, as we shall see in the behavior of Maharaj Parikshit. So therefore, we have Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll go in that order. Okay, there's something in the chat box. There are many personalities possessing the qualities of Bhagavan. Yeah, there are many demigods. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, they all possess different qualities. We read in Nectar of Devotion, read in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, summarized in Nectar of Devotion. Brahma has 50 qualities. Lord Shiva has 55 qualities. Seven. Yatha gopayati vibhur, yatha samyakshate punah, yam yam shaktim upashritya purush shakti parah puvan, atmanam kridayan kridan karoti vikaroti cha. Kindly describe how the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world in the sporting spirit of a player. Okay, so here 7 and 8 are taken together. So let me read this purport. In the Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, The Supreme Lord is described as a chief eternal being amongst all other eternal individual beings. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. And the one Supreme Lord who maintains innumerable other individual living beings. Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. So all living entities, both in the conditioned state and in the liberated state, are maintained by the Almighty Supreme Lord. Such maintenance is effected by the Lord through his different expansions of self and three principal energies, namely the internal, external, and marginal energy. The living entities are his marginal energies, and some of them, in the confidence of the Lord, are entrusted with the work of creation also, as are Brahma, Marichi, etc. And the acts of creation are inspired by the Lord unto them. Tene Brahma Sriddha. He inspires them to understand the Brahma in their hearts. Tene Brahma Sriddhaya Adikavaya. Even though it refers to Lord Brahma, it is understood that the Lord also helps Brahma's assistants, his disciples, and so on, corresponding to how devoted they are to him. The external energy Maya is impregnated with the jivas or conditioned souls. The unconditioned marginal potency acts in the spiritual kingdom, and the Lord, by his different plenary expansions, maintains them in different transcendental relations displayed in the spiritual sky. So the one Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself in many Bahusyam, and thus all diversities are in him, and he is in all diversities, although he is nevertheless different from all of them. That is the inconceivable mystic power of the Lord. And as such, everything is simultaneously one with and different from him by his inconceivable potencies. Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. What is this Divya Jnana Hride Prakashito? When it happens? That is discussed in Bhagavad Gita. In Chatushloki. So, what is that? Aham sarvasya prabho mattas sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam huda bhava samanvita. Machitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. And then it says, Tesham sarati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam guyanti. Tesham evanukam partham aham agyanajam tamaha nashayami atma bhavastho jnanadipena bhaswata. So when one executes pure devotional service unto Lord Krishna's lotus feet with the right understanding, then Krishna gives further clarification from within. This is the Lord's functioning as the Chaitya Guru. So externally, there are the Diksha Gurus and Shiksha Gurus, but internally, there is the Chaitya Guru. Text 8. Nunam Bhagavato Brahman, Areradbhuta Karmanaha, Durvibhavyamiva bhati kavibhischapi cheshtitam. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental activities of the Lord are all wonderful and they appear inconceivable because even great endeavors by many learned scholars have still proved insufficient for understanding them. So, the Vishwa that the Lord creates, that is inconceivable. The Lord's activities are also inconceivable. So the Lord sports with Brahma and the others who are his own different manifestations. And he deals with them in different ways. Purushakti in the previous verse indicates that the Lord has many different potencies. There are the Antaranga Shakti, the Bajranga Shakti, and the Tatastha Shaktis. The Jivas themselves are spiritual. So the Lord, he possesses all of them. Kridan Maya Shaktya Saha Divyan. The Lord plays chords using his Maya potency. Atmanam Karoti Mahad Ahankaradi Rupatvena Srijati iti Sarga Prashnaha. So the Supreme Lord, he uh, creates uh, from his own self. In other words, he creates in the form of the Mahatattva, Ahankara, and all these different stages of creation. This is a question pertaining to Sarga. तथा क्रीडयन् ब्रह्मं मरीच्यादीन् देवयन् विकरोति आत्मानं देवतरीं नरादिरूपत्वेन सृजति इति विसर्गप्रश्नः. Then he creates in the form of, see, this is the second level of creation by creating Brahma, Marichi, and so on, and then transforms them further into through them he brings out further products out of them in the form of the devas, the animals, the human beings, and so on. This is a question about Visarga. In the acts of the Supreme Lord, in the creation of just this one universe, appear inconceivably wonderful. And there are innumerable universes, and all of them aggregated together are known as the created material world. And this part of his creation is only a fractional portion of the complete creation. The material world stands as a part only. Ekamshena sthito jagat. They're a part in the sense that the Supreme Lord, by a part of himself, is maintaining this universe. Supposing that the material world is a display of one part of his energy, the remaining three parts consist of the Vaikuntha Jagat or spiritual world described in the Bhagavad Gita as Madhama or Sanatan Dhama or the eternal world. Now, this should not be taken in a literal sense because the Vaikuntha world is infinite. So, this concept of Ekapada Vibhuti, Tripada Vibhuti, 1/3 manifestation of the Lord's opulence in the form of the material world, or 1/4, and 3/4 manifestation of the Lord's opulence in the form of the Vaikuntha universe. This is not meant to be understood in a literal sense. It's not literally 1/4 and 3/4, but it is to give us an understanding that the material world is quite insignificant compared to the spiritual universe. Jiva Goswami notes in I think he notes in Bhagavad Sandarbha. Must be Bhagavad Sandarbha, if not Paramatma Sandarbha. That the spiritual world has 4 features, out of which the material world has only 1. So therefore, the concept of 1/4 and 3/4. He gives an explanation to this in terms of qualities, specific qualities. We have marked in the previous verse that he creates and again winds up the creation. This action is applicable only in the material world because the other greater part of his creation, namely the Vaikuntha world, is neither created nor annihilated. Otherwise, the Vaikuntha Dham would not have been called eternal. It is also to be noted that the Vaikuntha universe is unlimited. It is beyond measurement, whereas the Brahmandas of this universe, they are all measured. So even physically, or even in terms of measurement, one will have to accept that the Vaikuntha universe is way beyond measurement. The Lord exists with his Dhamma. His eternal name, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all a display of his different energies and expansions. The Lord is called Anadi, or having no creator, and Adi, or the origin of all. We think in our own imperfect way that the Lord is also created, but the Vedanta informs us that he is not created. Rather, everything else is created by him, Narayana Parovyakshat. Therefore, for the common man, These are all very wonderful matters for consideration. Even for great scholars, they are inconceivable, and thus such scholars present theories contradictory to one another. Even for the insignificant part of his creation, this particular universe, there is no complete information as to how far this limited space extends, or how many stars and planets there are, or the different conditions of those innumerable planets. Modern scientists have insufficient knowledge of all this. Some of them assert that there are 100 million planets scattered all over space. In a news release from Moscow dated February 21, 1960, the following piece of knowledge was relayed. Russia's well-known professor of astronomy, Boris Vorontsov Velyaminov, said that there must be an infinite number of planets in the universe inhabited by beings endowed with reason. It could be that life similar to that on Earth flourishes on such planets. Doctor of Chemistry Nikolai Zhirov covered the problem of atmosphere on other planets, pointed out, covering the problem of atmosphere on other planets, pointed out that the organism of a Martian, for instance, could very well adapt itself to normal existence with a low body temperature. He said that he felt that the gaseous composition of the Martian atmosphere was quite suitable to sustain the life of beings which have become adapted to it. This adaptability of an organism to different varieties of planets is described in the Brahma Samhita as Vibhuti Vinna. That is, each and every one of the innumerable planets within the universe is endowed with a particular type of atmosphere. And how advanced the living beings on each planet are in science and psychology depends on the atmosphere. Vibhuti means specific powers and Bhinna means variegated. Scientists who are attempting to explore outer space and are trying to reach other planets by mechanical arrangements must know for certain that organisms adapted to the atmosphere of Earth cannot exist in the atmospheres of other planets. Easy journey to other planets. One has to prepare himself, therefore, to be transferred to a different planet after being relieved of the present body, as it is said in the Bhagavad Gita 9.25. Yanti deva vrata devan, pitreen yanti pitrivrata, bhutani yanti bhute jya yanti madhyaji nopima. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors will go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. Maharaj Parikshit's statement regarding the workings of the creative energy of the Lord discloses that he knew everything of the process of creation. Why then did he ask Shukadev Goswami for such information? Maharaj Parikshit, being a great emperor, a descendant of the Pandavas, and a great devotee of Lord Krishna, was quite able to know considerably about the creation of the world, but that much knowledge was not sufficient. That much knowledge was not sufficient for him. He said, therefore, that even greatly learned scholars fail to know about that, even after great effort. The Lord is unlimited, and his activities are also unfathomed. With a limited source of knowledge and with imperfect senses, any living being up to the standard of Brahmaji, the highest perfect living being within the universe, can never imagine knowing about the unlimited. We can know something of the unlimited when it is explained by the unlimited, as has been done by the Lord himself in the unique statements of the Bhagavad Gita. And it can also be known to some extent from realized souls like Shukadeva Goswami, who learnt it from Vyasadeva, a disciple of Narada. And thus the perfect knowledge can descend by the chain of disciplic succession only, and not by any form of experimental knowledge, old or modern. The three things go together. Bhakti, Pareshanubhava, Virakti, Anyatracha. Devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowledge, understanding, and realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, internal detachment and external renunciation from everyone else, everyone and everything else. We'll come across this in the 11th canto. So these three will, they are supposed to increase in parallel. So since Maharaj Parikshit is a great devotee of the Lord, so naturally he is inquisitive about all of this also. Something in the chat box. How Prabhupada was quoting about this news. This means Prabhupada used to follow daily news also all the time. Yes, of course. 9. यथा गुणांस्तु प्रकृते युगपत् क्रमशोऽपि वा विभर्ति भूरिशस्त्वेकः कुर्वन् कर्माणि जन्मभिः. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one. Whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature or simultaneously expands in many forms or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature. That is actually mine. Why is it so? Oh, there's no point here. Achutranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, this thing has amazed me on several points. That how expert preachers they are quoting examples from outside the world, which is happening there, like Prabhupada quoting from newspaper, sometimes you giving things in your channel. So, like I tried to copy it and I always ended myself distracting into something else. So how it happens? Does it come with advancement in spiritual life? Automatically we get the piece of news which is relevant to us. What is the magic there?
There is no magic in this. It's a simple thing. You study Prabhupada's books, you obey Prabhupada's books, you use your brain, first of all. You don't brainlessly do whatever you're told. Just like a patient, an intelligent patient, always wants to know whether his health is increasing or decreasing or static. So, like that, we have to go on checking. We are here for a purpose. Some result has to be achieved. Not that whatever people keep telling us we have to keep on doing. It's not like that. That doesn't mean we become some stupid, rebellious character. It simply goes against every authority. That is also not the case. One has to use one's intelligence. So when that happens, then gradually we ourselves begin to understand. Okay, here is something which is useful for Krishna's mission. Here is something which is harmful for Krishna's mission. It becomes very intuitive and obvious. There's no magic in this. It's a simple thing. Okay, let's move on. 9. Yatha. Okay, I think I read this. एक पुरुषरूपेण युगपत् जन्मभिर्ब्रह्माद्यवतारे क्रमशो वा यथा प्रकृतिर्गुणान् गृह्णाति. He alone acts with the modes of material nature. This refers to the Purusha forms. The Purusha form. Or he simultaneously expands in many forms or expands consecutively. This refers to expands consecutively refers to his different gunavataras in the form of Brahma and so on. यथा एकः पुरुषरूपेण युगपत् प्रकृतेर्गुणान् बिभर्ति लिप्त एव इक्ष्णादिभिर्धारयति पालयति च तथा जन्मभिर् ब्रह्मा मरीच्यादि प्रादुर्भावैः भूरिशः बहुरूपः क्रमशोऽपि क्रमेणापि वा बिभर्ति कीदृशः कर्माणि सृष्ट्यादीनि कुर्वन्. So the Supreme Lord, in a single form of the Purusha, he simultaneously holds the gunas of Prakriti and he protects Prakriti without being attracted to her, without being stained by her. So he maintains Prakriti by his glance and so on. Similarly, through various births, what Janmabhihi is here. Karmani Janmabhihi, by incarnations. Through various incarnations. Here the incarnations refer to those who have been empowered by the Supreme Lord, by the appearances of Brahma, Marichi, and so on. Purishaha, Bahurupaha. in several forms, many forms. Kramashah api kramena api va vibhakti. And he also maintains them uh, uh, in succession, one after another. So in this way, he engages in various activities. What kind of activities? Activities such as creation. And विचिकित्सितमेतन्मे ब्रवीतु भगवान् यथा शाब्दे ब्रह्मणि निष्णातः परस्मिंश्च भवान् खलु. Kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned in the Vedic literatures and self-realized in transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord and are therefore as good as a personality of Godhead. Vichikitsitam sandigdham. Doubtful inquiry. Shabde brahmani vicharena nishnataha parasmin anubhavena. You are immersed in Shabda Brahma and in Parabrahma, which means through deliberation, you are immersed in the transcendental sound of Vedic literature. And you are uh, immersed in Parabrahma, in the supreme absolute truth, through direct experience. Nanu kavivischa api durvibhavyamidam ched aham janami iti tat tvam katham janasi. If this is an anticipated objection. If even for the learned scholars, this subject is beyond conception, how do you know that I know? In response to that, Parikshit is saying this. Yatha Bhagavan Krishnas tad bhakto bhavan api atheti artha. Just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, he knows like that his devotee, yourself, you also know. Trapi Shabde Brahmani Vede Vicharena Nishnata. And in this regard, you are immersed in Shabda Brahma, known as the Veda, through deliberation. Parasmin Brahmani Krishna cha khalu anubhavena. And through direct experience, you are also immersed in the Supreme Brahman, Krishna. Nityevam apare shastrakartarastu na anubhavanti te na jananti. Whereas the other authors of scriptures, they do not have this direct experience, and therefore they do not know. Kim vidatte, kim achishte, kim anudya vikalpayet, ityasya hridayam loke namyo madveda kashchana. What does the Veda prescribe? What does the Veda teach? What does the Veda repeat from ordinary worldly experience and then desist from it? The heart of this Veda is known only to me and no one other than me. This is Bhagavatam 11.21.42. The Supreme Lord is speaking to Uddhava. Iha Chakti Pradhanyena Krishna Ramad Yavatara Leela Iva Maya Shakti Pradhanyena Purushavatara Leela Brahmanda Nirmanadya Vaishnavaihi Shravya Eva Natra Katakshah Karya Iti Shrotri Vaktroha Parikshit Shukayor Abhiprayo Veditavyaha. It must be stated that the opinion of the hearer of Bhagavatam and the speaker of Bhagavatam, Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami, is that Vaishnavas should certainly hear the pastimes of the Purusha avatars, such as the creation of the Brahmanda, which are primarily in conjunction with the Lord's Maya Shakti, just as they should hear the incarnation pastimes of Krishna, Rama, and so on, which are executed primarily in conjunction with his chit shakti, spiritual potency. Natra Katakshakarya. They should not neglect these. Um, they should not neglect these. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Govinda, the personality of Godhead, although one without a second, is infallibly expanded by innumerable forms, non-different from one another. And although he is the original person, he is still ever young with permanent youthful energy. He is very difficult to know simply by learning the transcendental science of the Vedas, but he is very easily realized by his pure devotees. The expansions of different forms of the Lord, as from Krishna to Baladev to Sankarshan, from Sankarshan to Vasudev, from Vasudev to Aniruddha, from Aniruddha to Pradyumna, and then again to the second Sankarshana, and from him to the Narayana Purushavatars, and innumerable other forms, which are compared to the constant flowing of the uncountable waves of a river, are all one and the same. They are like lamps of equal power, which kindle from one lamp to another. This is all straight from Brahma Samhita. The way that is the transcendental potency of the Lord. The Vedas say that he is so complete that even though the whole complete identity emanates from him, he still remains the same complete whole. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. As such, there is no validity in a material conception of the Lord produced by the mental speculator. Thus, he remains always a mystery for the mundane scholar, even if he is vastly learned in the Vedic literature. Vedeshu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhaktav. Therefore, the Lord is beyond the limit of conception for mundane learned scholars, philosophers, or scientists. Is easily understandable for the pure devotee because the Lord declares in the Bhagavad Gita 18.55 that after surpassing the stage of knowledge, when one is able to be engaged in the devotion service of the Lord, then only can one know the true nature of the Lord. One cannot have any clear conception of the Lord or his holy name, form, attributes, pastimes, etc., unless one is engaged in his transcendental loving service. The statement of the Bhagavad Gita that one must first of all surrender unto the Lord, being freed from all other engagements, means that one must become a pure, unconditional devotee of the Lord. Only then can one know him by the strength of devotional service. In other words, when we execute devotional service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, then Lord Krishna, being satisfied with our attempts and attitude, chooses to reveal himself. That's all. It is simply his own choice. There is no mechanical arrangement by which we can force him to make that choice. Maharaj Parikshit admitted in the previous verse that the Lord is inconceivable even for the greatest learned scholars. Why then should he again request Shukadeva Goswami to clarify his insufficient knowledge about the Lord? The reason is clear. Not only was Shukadeva Goswami vastly learned in the Vedic literatures, but he was also a great self-realized soul and a powerful devotee of the Lord. A powerful devotee of the Lord is, by the grace of the Lord, more than the Lord himself. The personality of God, Sri Ramachandra, attempted to bridge the Indian Ocean to reach the island of Lanka. But Sri Hanumanji, the unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead, could cross the ocean simply by jumping over it. The Lord is so merciful upon his pure devotee that he presents his beloved devotee as more powerful than himself. The Lord expressed himself to be unable to save Durvasa Muni, although the Muni was so powerful that he could reach the Lord directly under material conditions. But Durvasa Muni was saved by Maharaj Ambarish, a devotee of the Lord. Therefore, not only is a devotee of the Lord more powerful than the Lord, but also worship of the devotee is considered more effective than direct worship of the Lord. Mad Bhakta Puja Bhyadhika. This is a statement of the Supreme Lord to Uddhava that worship of my devotee is greater than worship of me. The conclusion is therefore that a serious devotee must first approach a spiritual master who not only is well versed in the Vedic literatures, but is also a great devotee with factual realization of the Lord and his different energies. Without the help of such a devotee spiritual master, one cannot make progress in the transcendental science of the Lord. And a bona fide spiritual master like Shukadeva Goswami did not speak about the Lord only in the matter of his internal potencies, but also explains how he associates with his external potencies. The Lord's pastimes in the internal potency are displayed in his activities in Vrindavan, but the works of his external potency are directed by uh, his features of Karanarnavashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Vishnu Chakravarti offers his good counsel to the interested Vaishnavas when he says that they should not be interested in hearing only about the Lord's activities in Vrindavan like the Rasalila, but must be keenly interested in his pastimes, in his features of the Purusha in connection with Srishti Tattva, creational functions, following the examples of Maharaj Parikshit, the ideal disciple, and Shukadeva Goswami, the ideal spiritual master. Okay, what is this? Worship of devotee, how we should perform, to whom it applies. This comes in Upadeshamrita, Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta, that verse. So one honors the Lord's disciples corresponding to how advanced they are. Okay, we have time, but I will need some time to fix the schedule also. So what I'll do is up to 8:45, I will take up Bhagavatartha Marichimala. Up to right. This 2. Locate the verses. Okay. This is okay. So we saw 1.3.1. Sorry, this is third ray, Bhagavata Vivriti, an explanation of Bhagavatam. We saw the first verse, which is actually 1.1.3. Then 12.13.18 to 19. Point. श्रीमद्भागवतं पुराणममलं यद्वैष्णवानां प्रियं यस्मिन् पारमहंस्यमेकममलं ज्ञानं परं गीयते यत्र ज्ञानविराग भक्तिसहितं नैष्कर्म्यमाविष्कृतं तच्छृण्वन् सुपठन् विचारणपरो भक्त्या विमुच्येन् नरः. Srimad-Bhagavatam is a spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. This Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work, together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, becomes completely liberated. Srimad Bhagavatam is the perfectly pure Purana, which is most dear to the Vaishnavas, in which the exclusively perfectly pure knowledge of the Supreme is attainable to the topmost devotees. Such knowledge is sung in that Bhagavatam along with knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Freedom from all material work is revealed in this literature. By hearing, properly chanting, a person who is serious about understanding the Bhagavatam with devotion becomes totally liberating. साधारण पाठक वर्ग के बोलिते छेन. And then he says this for the ordinary readers. এই শ্রীমদ ভাগবত পুরাণ নির্মল. This Srimad Bhagavata Purana is spotless. Iha Vaishnava matrer priya. It is dear to every Vaishnava. ইহাতে এক অমল পারমহংসীয় জ্ঞান বর্ণিত আছে. In this book, uh, a process of spotless uh, knowledge attainable by the Paramahamsas is described. বিরাগ সহিত নৈষ্কর্ম্য জ্ঞান ইহাতে আবিষ্কৃত হইয়াছে. Freedom from material world along with vairagya is revealed here. ভাগবত শ্রবণ পঠন ও বিচার করিতে করিতে উদিত ভক্তি দ্বারা জীবের মায়াবন্ধ দূর হয়. By hearing, studying and analyzing Bhagavata, by such continuous engagement in these, bhakti arises, and in that way the bondage of the jiva to maya goes far away. Then the next verse. कस्मै भाषितोऽयम् अतुलो ज्ञानप्रदीपः पुरा तद्रूपेण च नारदाय मुनये कृष्णाय तद्रूपिणा योगीन्द्राय तदात्मना च भगवत् राताय कारुण्यतस् तच्छुद्धं विमलं विशोकमृतं सत्यं परं धीमहि. And meditate upon that pure and spotless supreme absolute truth, who is free from suffering and death, and who in the beginning personally revealed this incomparable torchlight of knowledge to Brahma. Brahma then spoke it to the sage Narada, who narrated it to Krishnadvaipana Vyasa. Srila Vyasa revealed this Bhagavatam to the greatest of sages, Shukadeva Goswami. And Shukadeva mercifully spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit. We study here, but we don't analyze Bhagavatam. How to do that? First of all, we are beginning to engage in a study. The analysis is done through thematic presentations like Bhagavatarka Marichimala, Shat Sandarbha, and so on. যিনি এই অতুল জ্ঞান প্রদীপ পূর্বকালে ব্রহ্মাকে বলেন, ব্রহ্মা নারদকে কহিলেন, নারদ বেদব্যাসকে কহিলেন, ব্যাস যোগীন্দ্র সুখদেবকে বলেন এবং সুখদেব করুণাপূর্বক পরীক্ষিতকে বলেন, সেই শুদ্ধ বিমল বিশোক অমৃত ও পরম সত্যকে আমরা ধ্যান করি. We meditate upon that pure, spotless, supreme truth, who is free from suffering and who is immortal, who spoke this unparalleled, who delivered this unparalleled torchlight of knowledge in the past to Brahma by speaking it. And Brahma spoke that to Narada, and Narada spoke to Vedavyas, and Vyasa spoke to Shukadev, the king of the yogis, and Shukadev mercifully spoke it to Parikshit. Now here, in the original verse, this expression comes, Tadrupena, Tadrupina, Tadatmana. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself He spoke it to Brahma, and he himself, in the form of Brahma, spoke it to Narada, and he himself, in the form of Narada, spoke it to Shukadeva, and so on. In other words, the Supreme Lord himself, as a super soul of these individual personalities, caused the Srimad Bhagavatam to be transmitted. 12.13.12. 12.13. First comes 12 and then comes 11. So I'll read out the verses in this order, and then I'll read out the translation in the order in which it appears. सर्व वेदांत सारम ही श्री भागवतमिष्यते तत्र रसामृत तृप्तस्य नान्यत्र स्यात् रतिः क्वचित्. That is there. That is also there. I know that. It's a different reading. It's that. Very interesting statement. Must be there somewhere. Comes as 15. Okay. So it is 15. Here in BBT edition, it comes as 15. In the edition that Bhaktivinoda Thakur consulted, it came as 12. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. Indeed, Srimad Bhagavatam is said to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. For one who is satisfied by its nectarian taste, there is never an attraction for anything else. Srimad Bhagavat, Sakala Vedanta Sar, এই অমৃত রসে যিনি তৃপ্তি লাভ করিয়াছেন তাহার আর কিছু রতি হয় না. Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta. That person who has attained satisfaction in this nectarian rasa of Bhagavatam will not experience attraction to anything else. 11. आदि मध्यावसानेषु वैराग्याख्यान संयुतम हरिलीला कथाव्रातामृतानंदित सत्सुरम. And then there's another statement here. Sarva Vedanta Saram Yad Brahmatmaikat Lakshanam Vastvad Vittiyam Tannishtham Kaivalyaika Prayojanam. From beginning to end, the Srimad Bhagavatam is full of narrations that encourage renunciation of material life, as well as nectarian accounts of Lord Hari's transcendental pastimes, which give ecstasy to the saintly devotees and demigods. This Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy because its subject matter is the absolute truth, which, while non-different from the spirit soul, is the ultimate reality, one without a second. The goal of this literature is exclusive devotion service unto that supreme truth. Adi Madhya Avasane Vairagya Khyan Samjukta Hoyachya. In the beginning, middle, and end are narrations on Vairagya, internal detachment and external renunciation. অনেক স্থানে হরিলীলা কথা সমূহ রূপ যে অমৃত আছে সাধু ও দেবতাগণ তৎপাঠে আনন্দিত হন. In many places there are discussions of the pastimes of Lord Hari, and the sadhus and devatas are delighted by reading that nectar. Okay, then we have a whole series here. Whole series here. 12.12. You see topics of Bhagavatam from the Bhagavatam itself. Yes. Yes, that in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's reading, verse number 6 begins with Parikshitam Upakhyanam. Parikshitam Upakhyanam. Okay, so this is 12.12.6 to 45 and 47. It will come in this whole series. And as we keep coming across them in the BVT edition also, we'll go through this also. Bhakti Yoga Samakhyato Vairagyam Chit Adashrayam Parikshitam Upakhyanam Naradakhyanam Evacha. The following topics are also narrated. The process of devotion service together with its subsidiary feature of renunciation and the histories of Maharaj Parikshit and the sage Narada. So notice this, that Bhagavatam presents Bhakti along with Vairagya. So it is a little different from how Vishnu Bhakti is presented in other places. Here it is repeatedly mentioned that one should give up adharma and one should give up dharma also. One should give up all responsibilities. One should give up family life. One should give up everything and exclusively engage in devotion service to Lord Krishna. This kind of presentation is repeatedly found in Srimad Bhagavatam. And of course, it contains histories of Maharaj Parikshit and the sage Narada. The process of devotion service is thoroughly enunciated along with renunciation that is subsidiary to it, means that it is favorable to bhakti, not that kind of renunciation which is unfavorable to bhakti. Veshwarajarshir Viprashapat Parikshitah Shukasya Brahmarshya Samvadascha Parikshitah. Also described are saintly King Parikshit's sitting down to fast until death in response to the curse of a Brahmana's son, and the conversations between Parikshit and Shukadeva Goswami, who is the best of all Brahmana. The fast until death executed by the sage among kings because of the curse of the Brahman's son. The conversation between Shukadev, the best of the Brahmanas, and Parikshit. Ihate Parikshitupakhyan, Naradakhyan, Parikshiter Viprashape, Prayopaveshan Varnitachi. In this book, there is narration about Parikshit, narration about, there is the history of Parikshit, the history of Narada, and how Parikshit sat down for fasting until death upon being cursed by a Vipra. Then there's a whole series. Better we take up this series later on. I just note that we reached 1.3.7. We'll stop at that. 1.7. I thought there was something here. That was. What is the meaning of giving up dharma? Material dharma, family life, and so on. Okay. So let me now work on fixing the schedule. We'll stop at this. Sanshaya Bhadarvyasya, Vipasindabhyeva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.